President Trump has a good solid base that turns out for him, and the undeclared voters in New Hampshire seem to be motivated to turn out for the Republican primary. On the Democratic side, usually when there is an incumbent president running for a second term, the turnout is lower than normal. The unusual case this election is that President Biden's name was not on the ballot because he declined to file here based on the issues we've been having with the Democratic National Committee.
Well, in terms of the contested primary, it's Republicans, and I bring our listeners and viewers back to the record in 2016, 285,000. Of course, Donald Trump won that primary. Mr. Secretary, what do you think it'll look like this time?
Well, I made a prediction of 322,000 voters turning out. That would be a record number of Republicans turning out for a presidential primary. And the way I came up with that number was looking back at similar primaries and gauging turnout. This was a difficult one to predict because for the first time ever, we have two individuals that have served as president of the United States that are running in their respective primaries. And then, we have to look at how motivated the undeclared voters seem to be in the state to turn out and vote for a candidate in both parties. This time, the action's on the Republican side.
Mm-hmm. I'm compelled by the very practical nature of your work here, dealing with paper ballots, driving them to central locations. There's obviously a great conversation here about election integrity, election security. How confident are you that this will be a clean process tomorrow?
This will absolutely be a clean process. There's no question in my mind. And what happens in a polling place in New Hampshire is that the moderator will open the polls at the appropriate time. The voters will cast their ballots. When the polls close, the moderator will come up with the final results at that polling place. Those results will be posted at the polling place. And then the return of votes will be filled out by the moderator that reflects those results. They will come to my office very early the following morning, and we will add them up to certify the final results. In New Hampshire, the polling places are actually run at the local level by locally elected officials, a moderator, a clerk, supervisors of the checklist, selectmen. They're all elected by their neighbors and friends and members of the community, and they get those jobs because of their integrity and their ability to do a good job. In a small state, we will have over 6,000 individuals working at the polls, and they're all average citizens of New Hampshire, but they're dedicated to doing a good job and reporting accurate results.
So, with that said, why does New Hampshire have multiple closing times? How does that potentially complicate your job?
Well, it's not that complicated. In New Hampshire, the law says the polling places have to be open from a minimum of 11 in the morning till 7 o'clock. Many polling places have varying hours in the morning when they start up, but at the end of the night, most polling places close at 7 o'clock. And then there's a handful, maybe a couple dozen, that stay open until 8 o'clock. So those are the two closing times. And I would expect that even with the write-in effort taking place on the Democratic ballot for President Biden, that we will have results by the end of the night.
By the end of the night, I just wonder, after what happened in Iowa, how worried you might be for the Associated Press to make a call at 7 when you still have people in line potentially until 8 o'clock. They called the caucuses a half an hour into the process. Have you been in touch with the Associated Press? Will they wait until all polls are closed?
I have not been in touch with the Associated Press. I would expect, as in prior elections, that results or declared outcomes of the election won't be made until after 8 o'clock when all of the polls close.
Well, it sounds like you're looking for an impressive turnout despite what seems to be a relatively subdued primary, Mr. Secretary. Give us a bit of a seminar before you leave in geography. Where should we be watching tomorrow night in the communities and counties that will decide the outcome of this election? Is it those along the Mass border where you have a concentration of conservative Republican voters, or will we learn more as we go north through the evening?
New Hampshire has some interesting pockets of voter turnout, and I think you're correct. There are towns along the southern border with Massachusetts that are conservative and will vote heavily Republican. And then you move up into some of the cities, whether it's Nashua or Manchester, over in the seacoast, Portsmouth, or the town of Hanover, where Dartmouth College is. You would expect to see higher Democratic turnout
Yep.
there. I think, it's hard to say which towns are going to be bellwether towns in this election because it is very different.